Welcome to Highfield Think Tank Online School. This is Kasoma Farouk of Uganda with our modern European history. To what extent did the external factors influence the downfall of Nicholas II? So, we need to understand how the external factors led to the downfall of Nicholas II in 1917. So we are saying Nicholas II was the last Russian Tsar who came to power in 1894 after succeeding his late father, Tsar Alexander III. He was a short-sighted king with a narrow mind, lacked political sense, and he was too conservative. Of course, that is Nicholas II. So we need to reason how the external factors led to his downfall. Number one, the impact of World War I. So we are saying World War I made Russia to lose over 4 million people as a result of World War I. So it is this that was capitalized on by those challenging Nicholas by the time to rise up against him, and this led to his downfall. Because they claimed that it is Nicholas who took people to fight in World War I, and many people were killed. By this time, people rose up against him. Then the loss and destruction of the wheat plantation of Ukraine by the German warplanes. So among the external factors was the loss and destruction of the wheat plantation of Ukraine. It is said that the wheat plantation of Ukraine in Russia was by the time was destroyed by the German warplanes because the German was against Russia's participation in World War I. So by this, people capitalized on this to challenge Nicholas. So we are saying the external factors led to the downfall of Tsar Nicholas II. Then the impact of the Russo-Japanese War 1904. What happened in the Russo-Japanese War? It is said Japan defeated Russia in the Russo-Japanese War. They were fighting over a territory called Manchuria. So by this, people blamed Nicholas II for the defeat in the Russo-Japanese War. Then the loss of Port Arthur to Japan by the Treaty of Portsmouth, chaired by the then American President F.D. Roosevelt. So we are saying Port Arthur was given to Japan, and this annoyed the Russians. They capitalized on this to challenge Nicholas II. Then the newspaper propaganda. We are like saying today, the newspaper propaganda still also led to the collapse of Tsar Nicholas II. These news were based outside and of course engineered by key people like Lenin and Stalin. These ones wrote ideas concerning about change. So in this kind of arrangement, as they wrote ideas concerning about to change, it is this that made people to rise up against Nicholas. Then the Russification policy. I can say the Russification policy of Tsar Nicholas II brought about strong opposition from the Baltic provinces of Estonia, Latvia, and Poland. What's all about this? This man said all foreigners in Russia were supposed to move as foreigners. In this, as the Russians, you were supposed to eat as a Russian. So it is this that made people to rise up against Nicholas, because the foreigners sponsored his opponents. Then the influence from German. So we believe by this time, as the Germans were rising up against Kaiser William II, even the Russians had to rise up. Then the rise of communism in Russia, spearheaded by Joseph Stalin. It is said as communism rose up and also it had to rise up in Russia, by this time, it is this that led to the collapse of Nicholas. Because in a communist government, they believed that all of properties had to belong to the government and the government had to look after people. So by this, since Nicholas was against communism, by this time, his opponents capitalized on this to challenge his government, and the peasants had to support his opponents since they wanted communism to work in Russia. Then among the other factors, the weakness of the Tsarist regime. I can say Tsar Nicholas II was a very weak man. He was easily influenced by the wife called Queen Tsarina. So it was the weakness of the Tsarist regime that led to the downfall of Tsar Nicholas II. Since the Tsarist regime was very weak, it is this that made people to rise up. The government failed to handle the critical questions of the day, like unemployment, issues concerning about the economy, and this led, of course, to Nicholas' downfall. Then the impact of the Bloody Sunday 1905. I can tell you, all of Sundays are called Sundays, but this was a Sunday. Father Gapon led the strikers and demonstrators, agitating for changes. But the government was not willing to listen. The soldiers fired onto the strikers. Over 92 were killed. Of course, this made people to rise up against Tsar Nicholas II. Then the influence of Queen Tsarina and Rasputin. We are saying Queen Tsarina ill-advised Nicholas II. Even Rasputin, the witch doctor, who used it to treat their son Alexei. Whatever Rasputin wanted to work could just tell Queen Tsarina, and Tsarina used to influence Nicholas. It is this that made people to rise up against Nicholas, and this led to his downfall. Then the influence of the Russian philosophers, big names like Lenin, Stalin, these were thinkers. They wrote ideas concerning about change, and people had to read, which made people to challenge Nicholas's regime. Then Industrial Revolution. I can say Industrial Revolution couldn't be bad, but it led to rural urban migration. People moved from villages to towns, hoping to get jobs. But in towns, jobs were not enough. Those that did not get the jobs started challenging Nicholas, because a leader is put up to solve people's problems. So by this time, it is this that led to the collapse of Nicholas II. Then, of course, the Kosaka Mutiny. The army turned against Nicholas. When the army turned against Nicholas, it is this that engineered his collapse and the downfall. Then the rise of nihilism in Russia. Nihilists, these ones were hardcore thinkers. They were thinking so much and they criticized the regime. Their ideas were highly respected. So it is this that influenced the downfall of Nicholas II, because the nihilists influenced people to rise up against the government. Then the privileges of the nobles and the clergy. In this kind of arrangement, the nobles and the clergy had very many privileges. They had big pieces of land. Some were not paying taxes. Moreover, the peasants, for them, they didn't have money, but they were paying so many taxes. So they capitalized on this to challenge Nicholas, and this led to the downfall of Nicholas. Then inactive Duma. Duma, this was the parliament of Russia, but it was working under the tunes of Nicholas II. People were not willing to accept this. They rose up and staged a revolution against Nicholas, and this led to his downfall. Then the grievances of the middle class. The middle class people were paying so many taxes. but their issues were not solved. In other words, they were not seeing taxes in their lives. It is this that was capitalized on by people to challenge Nicholas' regime, and this led to his downfall. Then the unpopular policies of the Prime Minister Stalin, who was too oppressive, cruel, and ruthless. I can tell you, Stalin was too oppressive and he was ruthless. He was killing, imprisoning those challenging the regime. So it is this that led to the downfall of Nicholas II. Because by this time, the more these were done, people hated the regime. Then the rise of Stalin and Lenin. As Stalin and Lenin rose up, prominent preachers in politics, they criticized the regime. Their ideas were respected by people. That's why people rose up against Nicholas. So, friends, you need to understand that it was the rise of Stalin and Lenin that led to the downfall of Nicholas II, a man who was supposed to survive in leadership for so many years. Finally, he had to collapse.